drive.
Hello, and welcome to Penny Film Reviews, a series where I buy a film from Amazon for a penny, not including shipping, and review it. It's that simple. And what's in this week, I hear you ask? Well, from the studio that brought you The Incredible Hulk and Ant-Man comes Daredevil. And yes, a double film bundle to start the series. I've got Daredevil the Director's Cut and Elektra, both for a penny. What a steal! Or is it? Now in this episode I'll only be focused on Daredevil. Over in a future episode I will feature Elektra. I'm quite excited to review this film actually. I'm a big fan of the Netflix series. This film also comes in with a strong cast, the likes of Ben Affleck and Colin Farrell. So I'm reasonably optimistic going into this. Now, I must be transparent with you. I've owned these DVDs for probably just over 2 years now. And this series was the reason why I bought them. However, I never got around to kicking this series off. And now I have. So I hope it's worth the wait. Before I get into the review, if this is the content you're interested in, consider dropping this video a like or even subscribing. Our film starts off with a Darude Sandstorm-esque soundtrack around a CGI city. Now this CGI is aged horribly and looks like something out of a cheap video game. This film was made in 2002 so I can excuse it a little bit, but they reused this rubbish CGI throughout the film. So we're introduced to our hero Daredevil as he clutches onto a crucifix. We get these crazy horror dreamlike flashbacks throughout, which I'm not afraid when I first saw it made me jump and shit my pants. Daredevil then plummets for the roof and is not really hurt by the fall, but I guess that's just whatever. Sure, let's move on. We then get the thing that all superhero films love. A nice flashback we met with Greg Heffley, a young Matt Murdock, as he gets picked on by a bunch of kids. The reason they're picking on him, we later find out, is because Matt's dad is working with Fallon, or some other guy I don't really care about. My point is, why would they give a shit? Just go play Fortnite or something. Oh yeah, I guess they didn't have Fortnite in the early 2000s. Play Pinball 3D Space Cadet or something. Well, this is where it really starts to hot up a bit. We get an Uncle Ben-esque promise, where Matt and his dad promise to be successful. We then get some of the most subtle foreshadowing in cinema history. I barely noticed this glowing logo. Matt searches for his dad at a construction site, not wearing a safety hat and generally being a massive dickhead. He's told his dad doesn't work there anymore and runs into his dad beating some bloke up. Shocked, he runs off headfirst into some hazardous stuff. Consequently, he's now blind. Matt wakes and discovers his heightened senses, and we get this sick into the brain, early 2000s Jimmy Neutron-esque shot. This heightened senses thing is weird and non-specific. He mainly seems to have heightened hearing. But I want to see the spin-off where Daredevil discovers his heightened sense of taste and becomes a judge in the Great British Bake Off. In this braille reading and boxing montage, we found out Matt's dad has put the life of crime behind him and started to box again. Matt also says that his sense of hearing gives off a sonar sense, like a bat. A subtle foreshadowing to Ben Affleck playing Batman in the future. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, is no doubt, in my mind, the coolest, sickest, Batman thing to ever grace cinema. Little Greg Heffley does some ninja flips. Or so I thought. Look closer. You can see this is no small child, but a very obvious older stuntman who's about 6 feet taller than young Matt Murdock. We finally have a point of redemption for Matt. The bullies have returned. What will happen? I'll give you some options. A. He accepts their apology. B. He runs away like a pussy. Or C. He beats the living shit out of them with his blind man stick. I'll give you 5 seconds. If you answered C, you'd be absolutely right. He mutilates these poor boys with his stick, taking no prisoners. He's even got Corey in the house over here hitting the no-no. And in the next shot, he's completely gone. Oh wait, he's back. I guess they forgot about continuity that day. Now Matt has brutally murdered 3 kids, he travels to watch his dad fighting. Now this is where the guy in the wheelchair from Breaking Bad reveals to us that Matt's dad has only been winning the fights because the other fighters are on his payroll. And he tells him he must lose this fight or face some very non-specific consequences. Long story short, he doesn't lose due to some motivational chance from Matt. But my question is, surely if Matt's dad is washed up and old like he says, he never stood a chance anyway. But apparently not, as he knocks out this opponent. But we know every action must have a consequence. And Matt's dad is killed. The killer leaving behind a rose. We get transported back to the present, and might I say we get the best graphic match in the history of cinema. From a church stained glass window, right to, wait for it, Ben Affleck's cum face. Unreal. So remember when Matt said he had heightened senses? Clearly he forgot, and raises the radio all the way to the max. He's blind, not deaf. Surely this causes him some discomfort. We find out later down the line that his arch enemy is loud noises. Obviously the writers just forgot and wanted some cool edgy soundtrack to accompany Daredevil's post-bath wank. After Matt's got ready, he heads to court and he finds out a new power he can add to his agenda. He can tell if people are lying based on their heartbeat. This guy's on trial and he's lying. And Daredevil gives him this very threatening line.
Mr. Quesada, for your sake, I hope justice is found here today. Before justice finds you.
But I'm sure no one will mention that. Not like he's hinting towards doing something bad to someone in front of court. No ramifications? Okay, sure. Daredevil then seeks revenge and we get a suit up scene. Let me start off by saying the suit doesn't look good at all. Daredevil just looks like he's into some kinky BDSM or something. The suit up scene is slow and boring, but we're in for some good action soon, I'm sure. Daredevil jumps off a skyscraper. Just to look cool, I guess? But how is that in any way his power? He might as well be Spider-Man. In fact, there are many indications throughout the film that will come up later which suggest he has all of Spider-Man's power, but he's just blind. So apparently that's slightly different. I'm not even got to mention how he survives the landing. Heightened sense of legs, maybe? Daredevil has tracked the guy who was on trial earlier to a bar, and a fight scene ensues. Now, this first half of the fight scene is actually not too bad. There's nothing on the fight scenes in the Daredevil television show, but that's not really relevant. Daredevil strikes out each light as he goes. This makes sense, as Daredevil will now have an upper hand. However, he seems to forget this later in the film, and never does it again. The set design is actually good too. The flashing lights behind the fight really work well. But then it gets bad. And oh my, does it get bad quick. Daredevil begins to sense bullets firing at him, manages to dodge them all. Okay, sure, why not? But then when Daredevil flees to cover behind a balcony that doesn't offer a lot of cover, they just stop firing. They've clocked off now, I guess. Maybe they're only employed to fire a few bullets. Going home now. Daredevil then chases the bad guy from the courtroom earlier down onto a subway platform. He seems to capture him, but then a train goes by and triggers Daredevil's heightened hearing. Which you may remember wasn't an issue with the radio before, but whatever, I'm over it. Daredevil then murders this guy, pushing him onto the train track and letting the train run over him. What a dick Daredevil is. Just killed a man for getting away with a crime. Now what will Daredevil do? He gets away with the crime. Seems like there's a bit of a oxymoron going on with your agenda there, Daredevil, but we'll move on. The problem with Daredevil murdering someone makes the audience instantly not sympathetic at all. Not sympathetic to the guilt he portrays throughout the rest of the film. You then see this dickhead reporter who just turns up to the crime scene and finds the biggest clue. Somehow he knows about this perfectly placed line of gasoline that hasn't been disturbed at all by the footprints or any of the police officers walking over it, and reveals Daredevil's logo. After a nice relaxing murder, Daredevil decides to go back to his bath, which he sleeps in to block out noise or something. Anyway, when he takes his suit off, we'll see all these scars along his back. But in the scene before, he can literally dodge bullets. How did he get stabbed? Was he just having an off day or something? Did someone sneak up on him? Now, this is probably my favourite scene in the film actually. Daredevil can hear a shooting, but can't help them, highlighting his guilt. The victim of the attack is present next to Daredevil in the scene. It's relatively effective at highlighting Daredevil's guilt. They can't save everyone. However, I can't help but think this would have been more effective if we didn't see him brutally murder someone the scene before. They really missed a beat with this one. Daredevil decides just to go to bed, and we get another Ben Affleck cum face. Yummy. Now, I'll introduce you to Matt Murdock's silly sidekick, Jon Favreau. I cannot remember this character's name for the life of me. It's just a useless comedic relief throughout the film. But that doesn't matter because, blimey, he's funny.
Sorry.
That's okay.
They have a bit of banter in a coffee shop, then Elektra walks in and Matt Murdock is smitten. He's so smitten that he follows her home, then challenges her to a fight. Like a pervert. And then all it's missing is some crazy royalty-free dubstep and some lens flares that look even better. We then meet our big bad villain, the Kingpin. With no real introduction, he murders 2 of his bodyguards for no real reason really. Just to establish him as being a big, scary man. Now in a boardroom, Elektra's dad, Mr. Nachos, yes, he's named after a Mexican dish, tells Kingpin he wants out of the business. But we know he would never be allowed out. And Kingpin has a totally awesome comeback, where he essentially says, a your mum joke.
How's your daughter?
Kingpin wants Mr. Nachos dead, and he knows a man who's hungry for Mexican food. Bullseye, the man who can hit anything, that's his superpower. And also, there's an arsehole tattooed on his forehead. Weird. Because he's an arsehole, I guess? And we know he's an arsehole because he calls Uncle Vernon from Harry Potter when we were first introduced to him. Now, with this being a director's cut of the film, the pacing is really strange. Essentially, it's been edited to feature the cooler shots rather than plot points or things that would help the story. Meanwhile, Matt Murdock and Jon Favreau are investigating a murder case, and to do so, they break into a murder victim's apartment. Now, at the beginning of this, Jon Favreau is quite conscious of leaving fingerprints everywhere, wiping down the door with a rag. But about not even 2 minutes later, they begin touching literally everything in the apartment. Guess they forgot. Now in the courtroom, we hear a testimony from Officer Mackenzie. I hope you haven't forgotten about Daredevil's bullshit radar, where you can listen to heartbeats. You listen to Officer Mackenzie's heartbeat and concludes he must be telling the truth. Although this conflicts with the defendant's story, who is also telling the truth according to the bullshit radar. What will Matt do with this information? Guess we'll find out later. Elektra sneaks up on Matt, and Matt takes her up to an apartment roof where we see a rubbish CGI skylight again. They have a conversation about how Elektra's mother's died. Basically, it's really boring. But then we get another revelation. Matt Murdock can summon rain. He senses the rain and tells Elektra to stay. But when it does rain, we get this grotesque look. And not only Ben Affleck's cum face again, but also the CG of the rain hitting Elektra's face. But Daredevil must leave, because he had a crime and he runs off into the night. After beating the living shit out of a guy, or kid watchers, he runs off back to his office, and he's got an invitation to the ball, like Cinderella. Jon Favreau persuades him to go, and they hit the town. In this scene, we find out that Jon Favreau really wants to shag Kingpin, so they go and say hello. After this encounter, Kingpin tells Mr. Nacho that he doesn't like Mexican food, and that he's going to kill him now. This is where we get our big first fight scene. Elektra gets into a car with her dad, Bullseye is on his way, doing all kinds of hip stunts, and Daredevil is coming for some reason. Within this fight, we get one of the worst CGI body replacement fight scenes I've ever seen, but it still looks better than the end fight scene in Black Panther somehow. In this CGI backflip, Bullseye somehow took Daredevil's stick thing, throws it at Mr. Nacho, making a Nacho kebab. He dies. Elektra assumes Daredevil killed him and shoots at him as he scurries off into the night, swinging from a rope similar to another superhero that will remain nameless. So the next 20 minutes of the film are pretty pointless, but I'll condense it quickly for you. Bullseye tells Kingpin he wants to kill Daredevil because he made him miss. What great motivation. Jon Favreau is left alone in the courtroom and is really shit, because funny, even though he's still a lawyer regardless if Matt isn't there. But sure, Jon Favreau is funny, whatever, move on. And Matt crashes Elektra's dad's funeral, and she cucks him. Now you're up to speed. Remember Officer Mackenzie from earlier? Well, he's leaving a strip club and Matt Murdock is about to confront him. Yeah, Matt Murdock, not in Daredevil costume for some reason. I guess if he got to wear it that day, but whatever, not like he has a secret identity or anything. The twist is that Officer Mackenzie is a pacemaker, and that's why Matt couldn't tell that he was lying. And in retaliation, Matt crashes up his car. After this, we get a fight montage where Elektra fights a bunch of sandbags to bring me to life by Evanescence. No, I'm not joking, take a look. After this, we get a blockbuster fight scene, where Elektra, Bullseye and Daredevil are all in the same building by some miracle of fate. Daredevil and Elektra fight, and Daredevil gets stabbed, and Elektra finds out he's Matt Murdock, and then she gets killed by Bullseye. Yes, it does really happen that quick. This is an example of some of the pacing being very strange. Some scenes drag for far too long, whereas others go far too quick. I'm sure this may be down to the director's cut being edited in such a strange way, but I couldn't say for sure. During all this mess, Daredevil and Bullseye have both scurried off to a church, where the final showdown will begin. Now this is a good opportunity to remind you that Bullseye's power is, he's really good at throwing things. And he starts off by throwing something, well done, which hits the bullseye. But then he forgets he's good at throwing things and runs up an organ instead. Even when he has a pretty throwable pipe in hand, he doesn't throw it. He doesn't throw anything for a very long period of time. When he finally throws something, they all miss. He only brought about 6 things to throw. What a useless prick. But he has a plan. He backflips through a glass window and throws CGI glass at Daredevil. Daredevil managed to cartwheel away from all this glass, despite being stabbed only moments earlier. Then Bullseye discovers Daredevil's arch nemesis, sound. Bullseye is about to stab him, despite again his aforementioned ability of throwing things, but Daredevil hears a gun cocking and pushes Bullseye into the bullet's path. He turns into a massive bitch, and Daredevil pushes him out the window, and we get quite possibly the best line in cinema history.
Bullseye.
Bullseye revealed that Fisk is the Kingpin. Daredevil puts 2 and 2 together and figures out the Kingpin must have killed his dad. He then jumps across a whole building. What? And makes his way to Fisk. Okay, this guy's literally Spider-Man. They have a sick fight scene and Daredevil appears to be losing, until he uses his rain summoning power to see Kingpin better. He's about to kill him, and then he doesn't, suggesting he learnt from brutally murdering that guy with a train in it. This has been well and good if he felt like he'd learnt from that. But he hasn't. He's just been attacking and killing people throughout the film, and has shown no real remorse. But this is the final message of the film, so we've got to get some kind of resolution. With both Fisk and Bullseye in prison, the film ends. However, Matt Murdock finds a necklace similar to Elektra's, suggesting she's still alive somehow, and boy, I can't wait for the sequel. All in all, I don't hate this film. It has a lot of problems though, with pacing, some cheesy dialogue, and some really dated CGI. It has its moments though. I think it's better than some of the MCU drivel we're forced to watch as a modern day audience member.